Lesson 4. Examinations. We've talked about beginning with the end in mind. Well, the ending in a higher degree is examination. Examination is the crucial moment of the PhD, and when I supervise in my first meeting, I talk about examination and examiners. I make students read at least one successful PhD so they understand the genre, and I ask that we write down 5 great leaders in their fields, and then I ask them that they put that list of the 5 great leaders above the writing desk for the entirety of their candidature. And I do that so that they always remember the possible audiences for their work, that is, examiners. Examination is the moment of quality assurance for doctoral education. Examiners have particular requirements and characteristics, so they must be external to the university, they must be of international standing, an expert in their field, research active, hold the qualification that they are examining. They must be impartial. That means there must be no conflict of interest or bias, and yes, they must be available to examine. Now, I know there is a tendency to ask our candidates who they would like to examine them. Please don't do this. We'll ask our students at the point that they fill in the intention to submit form to list the examiners that they do not want. This is important and it must be respected. But the key decision that a supervisor must make, the key decision, is to select examiners. That is our most important task. We are much more experienced than our students. They don't know the requirements of examination. We do. We are supervisors and we know what is required. I spend months digitally stalking examiners. I'm incredibly rigorous, conservative and careful in the selection of examiners. I want the best in the world in their field, but I also want them to be experienced and not fickle and not weird. Let me explain. How do you know what is at standard for a doctoral thesis? Have a think about that now. How do you know when you read a student's doctoral thesis that it is at international standard, that it's ready to be examined? We have 5 tiers of assessment for higher degree examination at CDU. We have 2 examiners in the higher degrees, and each of those examiners independently grants a result between 1 and 5. Let's do the numbers, shall we? 1. The degree to be awarded without further alteration to the thesis. 2. The degree to be awarded, but only after the typographical and writing errors are corrected to the satisfaction of the university. 3. The degree to be awarded, but only after the substantive concerns as well as the typographical and writing errors are corrected to the satisfaction of the university. 4. The candidate must complete further work and resubmit the thesis for examination. And 5. The degree should not be awarded. 1, 2 and 3 are in the old money, no corrections, minor corrections or major corrections. The final stages of the examination from those 3 results are organised within the institution. 4 is the revise and resubmit, so we have to go to examination once more. And 5 is, to be brutally frank, the fail. The higher degree is not awarded. So the absolute priority of the supervision is to ensure that the thesis and research is over the line. That means a 1, a 2 or a 3. And obviously a great result is both examiners award that above the line number. Great. So if one examiner grants a 1, 2, 3 and the other grants a 4 or 5, then that is termed a split decision. And a third examiner is required. And then they independently offer their assessment, and with those 3 data points, the institution then makes a judgment. But let's focus on you as a supervisor and your scholarly and professional judgment. Particularly if you've not examined many theses yourself, how do you know? How do you know that your student's thesis is above the line? The answer is you've read a large number of successful theses, you are research active, and you're working at the very edge of high-quality scholarly standards yourself. But you see, refereeing is very different from examination. I've written now well over 250 refereed articles, but I only have one PhD. Therefore, do not think that peer-reviewed articles are a proxy for a successful examination. They are not. I have seen examiner after examiner locate errors in the peer-reviewed articles and therefore move the student to revise and resubmit. So have you got a sense of the location of the line of pass and fail on a PhD? Do you know what a passed PhD looks like? Do you know what a fail looks like? Okay, that's great. Now, do you know the line between what is a major correction and what is a minor correction? Do you know where that line is? Brilliant. Okay. Do you know where the line is between minor corrections and straight through without corrections? These are tough questions. Do you know what an examiner is looking for? Now, if you're a bit shaky on some of these questions, think about your doctoral candidates. So when academics listen to their PhD students and their choices, then okay, listen, but your professional judgment must dominate this discussion. Students have an opportunity to object to the people that they do not want to examine them, and that objection must be listened to, but please choose wisely. If you choose examiners badly or you submit an undercooked thesis, you will ruin somebody's life. No pressure. So remember that once the examiner has been approached, there must be no communication at all between you as the supervisor, the student and the examiner. So once they have agreed and that name has been passed on to our colleagues in examination, all communication now ceases. We also have to be very clear about conflicts of interest. You cannot choose an examiner with whom you have written or gained a grant. You can't choose an examiner who you've worked with at the same institution or obviously had a personal relationship. And obviously, although colleagues do try this quite a lot, you cannot select your PhD supervisor or your former students as an examiner. In the Australian system, we are lucky in many ways because we can select from the best in the world. So please, you can select the best in the world. Don't pick someone from Queensland. Don't pick someone from Australia. Really, you can choose anyone in the world. And you decide to pick an examiner from Queensland. Now, by the way, some of my best friends are Queenslanders, but you know what I'm saying. So please choose your examiners wisely. They have 8 weeks to report and recommend a result. And once those glowing reports are returned to the university, there are some final steps. Most reports recommend minor or major corrections. Please don't be disappointed about that. That's absolutely normal. Get those corrections organised as quickly as you can. And what I do is I sit with the student and we list the corrections with precision. And then we address them. So what we do is, at this stage, when the student is obviously quite tired and perhaps a bit emotional, we give them clear and concise information about what to do, what addressing those corrections looks like. Now, my goal is to process those corrections at speed. Do not let the students sit and fester. Give them a week to calm their emotions and think about it, but then, wow, bang, get in there, make those corrections. Okay, we now have the final copy. At that point, the student is eligible to graduate and they have a right to celebrate, and so do you. As I always say, doctoral supervision is a privilege, it's not a right. And we are building a future for our universities. We're building a future for knowledge, one candidate at a time. Therefore, the final section of this Lighthouse program explores the supervisory relationship. So we've worked through admissions, progressions and examination. That's the process. That's compliance. Now, let's activate excellence.